happy to take any questions that anybody might have, 'cause I suspect there are some.
How do you respond to the fact that you say that they were not acting as officers when they showed up there? Then after the incident, they're able to hide behind the rights of officers by not having to get blood drawn.
Very good question. Did everybody hear the question? Okay. They did not hide behind the rights of police officers not to have their blood drawn. It was a criminal investigation conducted by a law enforcement agency. Any citizen in that same situation would not have to voluntarily consent and could require the government, the law enforcement agency, to obtain a court order, search warrant, to obtain their blood. What they actually did was invoke their rights as a citizen of the United States under the Fifth Amendment to not answer the question of whether what is your blood alcohol content. You ask somebody that question, they don't know. You have to get blood draw to determine chemically what it is. People all the time refuse to answer questions with police departments. They all the time refuse to answer questions in front of Congress. The citizen is not a law enforcement right, it's a citizen right. The difference here is the police officers knew their rights and following legal advice, and followed that legal advice. They didn't actually hide behind the fact that they were police officers. They invoked a constitutional right that everybody enjoys. Sir?
Can I do the same thing?
You can do the same thing. Now,
Nice.
that's a very good question, and let me answer it directly. Yes, you can do exactly the same thing. But I am sensitive to the fact that we have a multicultural community, and the question is asked, is there a double standard? One standard for police officers and one standard for everybody else? And the answer to that is no, there are not. The difference is the police officers know both sets of rules, the citizens and the police officers, and because they deal with that every day. One other thing I should volunteer is there was a question about attorneys being provided for the officers. This question was raised by Mr. Iraganagarai and his clients, that there were attorneys immediately provided for the officers at 5 o'clock in the morning, and that those attorneys responded. That is exactly the same right that every citizen has. It's the Miranda warning. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. You have the right to an attorney. You have the right to an attorney present before questioning. Every citizen gets that exact same right, and under the Miranda v. Arizona requirement, police officers have to advise individuals of their rights. In this case, the police officers already know their rights. So they're on the phone calling their lawyers.
But these officers allege, though, that Iraganagarai alleged that these officers were helped to get lawyers by the police officers that responded to this incident, by the sheriff's officers that responded to this. In other words, the people that were investigating all of this afterwards helped them get the lawyers before they did anything else. What about that?
That is absolutely true. Now, the way that's done is somebody else calls the lawyers when a situation happens. Happens in every police department in the United States. Officer gets in trouble, somebody else is calling the lawyer. Happens in society every day too. People say, talk to my lawyer, don't talk to me. I'm represented by counsel, my attorney is, talk to him.
That they just call you guys, the police, let them handle it. Instead of them going up there with armed and been drinking and, and start that and here, hey, I'm ready to do some battle.
I've already said clearly, they shouldn't have been there.
Exactly, especially armed
Right.
and drinking.
They shouldn't have been there. Yes, sir.
Why did they identify themselves as police officers off duty?
Why didn't they?
Well, yes. They knew that they were hiding that issue. They should have addressed themselves.
Actually, from their account of this, and remember, I'm not defending anybody, I'm trying to give you facts. Their account of this is they did not go there as police officers. Their intention was to go there to remove Officer 3 who had gone there. Officer 3, when he went there, did not create a disturbance, but 1 and 2 needed to get him out of there. In fact, the evidence, the investigation revealed that the officers intentionally did not identify themselves as police officers because their intent was only to go and get him out of there. When he went there, Officer 3 went there, that's what started this. 1 and 2 went to get him out of there. They didn't identify themselves as police officers because their intention was to take him and get him out of there, not take some official police action.
For all our four officers, these 4 officers, are they still working for the TPD? And what is the process for disciplining them? How long is this gonna take?
Okay.
And what are you gonna do?
What happens now is, and I have told the officers this, the investigation is completed. It will now enter into the administrative hearing process, the administrative appeals process. It is a situation where the next phase of this is that the appropriate action is taken, whatever that may be, and then if the officer disagrees with that action, say for example, no action is taken, the officer agrees with that, fine. If the officer disagrees with that, if some action is taken, the officer can file an appeal. In the city of Topeka, the police chief does not have the ultimate authority in terminating an employee. That rests with the HR department and then the union requirements of the various contracts under which city employees work. All I can tell you is that the disciplinary process and that appeal process is clearly defined. We will take the appropriate action, whatever that might be, and then they will either agree with it or won't agree with it, and it will be appealed, and depending on the severity of the discipline, the appeal process could last a long time. What you all need to know is, none of that, under Kansas law, is an open record. It is a personnel matter. Just like employees in businesses have privacy rights, employees in the public sector have privacy rights, and none of that information is public. So, if I'm interpreting your question correctly, will we ever find out what happens to these officers? In my experience, no. I could beat around the bush. I could give you some answer that walks around it. In all likelihood, probably not, because it is a personnel matter under Kansas law, and it is not a public record.
You have the authority to make it a public record, though.
No, actually, I don't think I do. Your point would be that the law just says the city shall not be required to make that public. In reality, personnel matters in the city of Topeka are closed records, and personnel matters are not discussed publicly, and it would be a matter of the city determining whether in this case they wanted to open that up, for which I will assure you that the unions, multiple unions, will protest, and it's unlikely that those things would become open public records. Wait, I'll keep coming around. I'll come back to you. Yes, sir.
Okay, just to follow up on that, will we ever find out if any kind of disciplinary action was taken, whether it is to a specific individual or generally speaking? In other words, will we find out disciplinary action ever happened?
My belief is that if an employee no longer works for the city, then that information is public record, because the public record would be who are the employees of the city, what is their position, and how much money do they make. That is an open record. So if an employee is no longer working for the police department or any other city department, the question would be, do we make that public? People resign from the city of Topeka, retire from the city of Topeka, get terminated by the city of Topeka, and we don't make press releases on that. But trying to answer your question the best I can, I believe if somebody's employment is severed, that would be a public record. Question in the back, yes.
Are you personally disappointed with the actions of the officers on that night, from a personal level as their boss?
I am disappointed in the decisions that they decided that they made, the actions that they decided to take. I don't know how much clearer I can be, folks. They should not have been there. You have the report in your hands that says poor judgment. They shouldn't have been there. We can't go back and rewind it. All we can do is go on from here to work to establish trust, to reestablish trust with the police department. The police department in any city in America has a unique relationship with the community. The community depends on them to serve and protect, but they're the ones who make the arrests of the people. And they're a different perspective of the community, depending on what part of the community is, there's a different perspective of that action and reaction to the police department. We just have to do better. I've told the officers that. I was pretty pointed with them on that issue. I must tell you that I did not discuss disciplinary action with them today. I merely went over this report with them and told them that their actions were inappropriate.
If the roles were reversed and the Lamas family had shot the officers, would the Lamas family have spent time in jail?
That takes us back to the question of the double standard. And what I told you is, let me answer the question first. What I told you is I was going to try to stay within the arena of factual information, but we're really off the topic of the case. You're asking me if the situations were reversed. Exact same set of circumstances happened without any change, just flip the addresses on the house. That's all you do, flip the addresses on the house. Would the result have been the same? Probably not.